Hey, welcome back to Rigmarole. This is Clara,
I'm Des.
and tonight we are going to talk about why the Disney remakes just are not weird enough.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have correctly identified a lot of the issues with them. Their obsession with kind of grounding things in realism that don't need to be realism and how weird they are. And we are of the opinion that the biggest issue with them is honestly that they're not weird enough.
Not weird enough. It's too real. That's not what we're there for. We're there for singing dishes that look weird.
When you transfer something from one medium to another, from one genre to another, you have to understand what to keep and what to throw away. And a lot of the movies, they just solve the wrong problems.
Exactly. Okay, so one of my big beefs, and I know that this has been talked by some other people previously, but specifically in The Lion King, this is most noticeable, but it happens in the other ones too. In cinematography, there are different camera angles. You can do like a long shot or a middle shot, or you can do like an up close. And in The Lion King, it got ripped up pretty much because they did it like
they were obsessed with making a documentary and with making their physical virtual cameras to be able to be like a documentary.
So it has a bunch of long shots, which are not exciting. They're really boring. Usually they're done because you can't get close enough to the animals for it to be interesting.
And the whole thing with animation is that you can do all sorts of crazy camera movements because you're creating the whole scene. And they had an opportunity to do that with Lion King.
They had an opportunity
because they created this whole virtual world and virtual characters. They could have done so many things, and they completely lost that opportunity to either copy just like staging directly from the original or to just imitate a documentary. And it's because they're trying to solve the wrong problems. They're trying to bring these fantasy movies, these fantastical animated stuff into the real world by grounding them and trying to imitate reality, and all that does is draw your attention to how weird they are.
Yeah. And I have to say, with the camera angles, it was The Lion King that was the most noticeable, but also it happens in the other ones. It's a fantasy movie. You can use dramatic angles to tell a better story, especially when you're doing a fantasy story.
And I think people don't understand, when we talk about, immersion in the story and suspension of disbelief, there's a lot of focus that people talked about how the natural stylization of animation and stuff lends itself to that, and colors. And I do think all those things are important, but lighting and camera angles can make such a difference in how you see things as real and how you set the tone. Just imagine, those old film noir things where you'd have these super dramatic black and white lightings and long angles and stuff, and it put you in the world even though it was live action. And that's what we needed from things like Lion King and stuff, is just.
There was even a period in painting, I can't remember it off the top of my head. If you can remember it, put it in the comments below.
But our vague knowledge of art history.
Our vague knowledge of art history that I did several times throughout high school. But there was a dramatic lighting period, basically, where they were like...
Isn't that Caravaggio?
Caravaggio? That sounds correct. Yeah, I remember there's one of David and Goliath, specifically.
Yeah, I think
that it's got the very dramatic lighting.
And rippling muscles.
And
that's the other thing. It's perfect. Reality isn't what people think it is. There are so many things that can be real. In real life, lighting changes and sunlight changes and I don't know, the way things look changes, and we're obsessed with this idea of reality being extremely dull. And
play it up. The scenes in fantasy really should be extreme. So with what we were talking about before we started this video, and something that stands out to me is with the punk genre, everything is just so gritty. It's so unrealistic. And yet whenever you go into that world in a movie or in a book, you know where you're at. You're like, this is where I'm at. This is punk, and it's gritty, and it's gross, and it's grimy.
Also, I feel like more filmmakers need to understand it's kind of the massacre of Disney movies is in the same vein of the massacre of Broadway musicals brought to film, because basically Disney movies are animated Broadway musicals. That's basically what they are. And
the Renaissance ones, at least.
And you don't fix that by trying to downplay the music and the stuff that's going on. Like in The Lion King, the music was just so bad. They kept Scar's dramatic thing. It was just turned into kind of this vague
comical
monologue.
Yeah.
the thing is, I feel
the
like
humor's gone out
I feel like they do that because they're like, well, realistically, this is how they move. And this obsession with realism, again, comes with this idea of immersion, but it doesn't immerse you in the story. It draws your attention to how, like, flat and weird things are. Whereas if those lines were strutting around and if the camera angles were dynamic and if they were allowed to sing and dance and characters, and if you were able to, like, pose characters, like, drawing attention to that artifice that is inherent to, like, musical theater and dance, that would actually immerse you more in the story because you'd be ready for the inherent artifice of it all.
I know that we're at a phase in media where we really just want to see things that will hit the most number of people and appease the masses. However, there is something to be said with hitting a specific audience and owning that.
Mm-hmm.
Owning it like a boss.
But we're never going to see that from Disney because Lion King made, like, oodles of money because they know how to milk them a nostalgia factor and they are Disney. So we will never see an end to these incredibly bland and badly thought out movies.
Yep, unfortunately.
Which is a shame.
It's very unfortunate. Can we think of any, on that note, before we end, can we think of any really well done movies recently that we've seen?
Like remakes?
Well, not even remakes, but like live action that had like a firm setting that was kind of, actually, where's that movie? What's it called?
Which one?
Was it called Paradise Halls?
Paradise Falls.
I think it's Paradise Halls.
Paradise Hills, maybe.
Paradise Hills, something like that.
That one was okay. That one was
the
a
plot
delightfully weird live action, but it's like it had a very distinct Alice in Wonderland vibe.
Yeah, the plot was not great. It was not a very memorable movie in that way, but the setting was so quirky.
Yeah.
And it just, like, I still remember it months later.
It melded this fantasy with a sci-fi vibe. It's like there's this girl and she's on this island with other girls who are being trained to, like, look and act right, and just the settings were stunning. It kind of was Dr. Seussical in ways.
Yeah, it was so unique,
brightly colored
to
and
that
very
movie.
Yeah, and I really liked it just for the aesthetics of it. Another one I'm thinking of is what's it called? Is it, I want to say Crimson Peak? That has gorgeous set pieces and style and just colors and really pushes the drama and the fantasy and the horror of the setting and designs in a way that just feel and it immerses you because that's how the movie is the whole way through. Though that's, again, not quite as recent. I mean, who's seen any recent movies now with the pandemic?
Yeah, with COVID, things have been hard.
Trying to think of
actually, I think I have to bleep out that word.
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
also, Thor Ragnarok, I would say, was another good one where thank you for taking the superhero genre out of the dark, gritty cesspool it's been in and just letting it be bright, rainbow colored, and rock music. It was a fun movie. I can't remember anything about the plot, but I just remember it was good to look at and fun to see.
Yeah, and it was entertaining. It was like mildly entertaining. Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I mean, and most superhero movies these days don't entertain me much, so I do remember that one as a standout.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for tonight. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. Ring the bell, all of that jazz, and we'll catch you guys next Monday for another post.
See y'all.